Facebook channel, or at least one of my Facebook channels. I'm not exactly sure which one that is or if it even works. But I'm going to check that right now here on my iPad. In the meantime, take a look at the new environment here. A nice beach. Looks a bit familiar to those of you that play. Oops, and there we have a new follow. Thank you so much from, well, who was that? That is Deborah. Thank you, Deborah, for following me. I appreciate it. I actually don't know. I don't know how to turn this off. Oh, and we've got another follower. Thank you, Michael. I think what I can do is turn off the alert box. I don't know. Oh, that didn't work. We've got another follow from Saeed Zala. Thank you. Welcome. And by the way, if you're new to the stream, then you can always hit the chat box and announce yourself or present yourself. So I'm about to record a weekly show, which is what I normally... Oh, I know what I can do. I can turn off the sound coming from the computer. That's probably a good idea. So I host a weekly podcast, but I also have a YouTube channel. So sometimes it's fun to just stream live as well. And we've got Margot Johnson also tuning in from Tacoma Park. Yeah, I love the beach scene too. I'm also using new lights. I have 2 studio lights here, Elgato Streamlight Key Lights Airs, I think. So I've got much more light here on the green screen than I've ever had before. So I'm experimenting a little bit with a new layout. Also have, for the first time since the start of my podcast, I have some images for every segment. So hopefully that will make it look more like, I don't know, something that's worth watching on YouTube as well. No idea. Hey, Noah, welcome to the chat. Now, what I would like to know is, am I actually also streaming this on Facebook or not? Let's take a look and see what's going on. Maybe this doesn't work. I've never done... Oh, actually, yes, I am live now. On my page, on my profile page as well. So welcome if you're on Facebook. Let's take a look. Oh, that is so cool. Yeah, John is watching on Facebook. Loud and clear, he says. And Tom is watching, and Frank is also watching. Now, I think I have a multi-stream chat as well. It's a stream chat read only. But for some reason, I can't really see the chat messages from Facebook. I've got Jurgen, who's a colleague of mine, a fellow priest from the Archdiocese of Utrecht, also watching. And Matthew and Peter, a fellow Star Wars fan, also watching. So I'll probably have to work out how I can bring in the Facebook reactions into the overall Streamlabs interface that I'm using, because now I can only see the YouTube chats. By the way, in case you're following me on Facebook and you're not following me on YouTube yet, then I invite you to go over to youtube.com/Father Roderick and subscribe to the channel, because I post a lot of stuff only on YouTube. I never post it on Facebook. So you may miss out on a lot of stuff that I do, unless, of course, you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Not to mention that the YouTube community that hangs out there is a fun community. I really love my YouTube followers. There are about 27,000 of them right now. But of course, there's a core group, always joins me for the live streams, and it's a ton of fun to meet them. Noah wants to know if I'm French. No, I'm not. I'm Dutch, but I do speak French. We've got UK Templar and Lionel and Mr. Snoosh Noosh, who's my favorite Battlefront 2 character. I like Darth Maul quite a bit. We've got Elise who's watching. So again, click that or hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button if you want to get notified of future live streams. And if you are on Facebook, make sure to also take a look at my YouTube channel and subscribe. Again, youtube.com/Father Roderick. I'm going to take off... am I going to take off... No, I don't need to take off my headphones. But I am going to start the show, because otherwise it's never going to be ready in time. We've got Mike also on YouTube joining us. Joseph is there. Ocean Man, long time no see. Well, glad we see each other right now. Righty, I've got a ton of things to talk about. I hope I do not forget to switch the slides that are up there. Thanks to my green screen. I really like this overall design of the what is it? Kind of the picture frame hanging there in the same style, a similar style as Animal Crossing. That is why you have a good accent. In French, do priests in the Netherlands smoke weed? No, we burn frankincense, but it gets you high in a different way. Hello, Russia. Chops is tuning in from Russia. It's so cool to see such a wide variety of people. After I've recorded my public show, I'm going to continue with a private recording. That is for my Patreon supporters. So I have a number of people that help me produce these shows. They support me over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. And for them, I have a special hangout every week, a show that I just do as a thank you for their support. So if you want to help and you want to get access to that show as well, take a look at patreon.com/Father Roderick. You also get access to a Discord server where I hang out all the time. So there are multiple reasons to join the Patreon community. All right, enough publicity. Let's get started with the show. And I'm going to play some jingles. Sometimes I'm going to play some trailers as well. I haven't figured out how to show those on screen yet, so you just hear the audio. But I'm learning and I'm improving bit by bit. We also have Noah from Denmark. Very, very broad community today. Let's take a look at the audio levels. That should work as well. So I think we can start. Well, maybe I should press record on my audio recorder. Here we go. Hello there, and welcome back to my weekly show. I'm Father Roderick, recording on a rainy Friday afternoon here in the Netherlands. But thanks to the wonders of green screen, I've got a sunny beach as a background today. Welcome to the show. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Today's show, just like all my other shows, are brought to you thanks to my patrons, those of you that support me on a monthly basis. And I'm happy to welcome a few new Patreon members on today's show. And I want to mention by name Scott, Jamie, Twan from the Netherlands, and Michael. The four of you have decided to join me, or to join the community and to join me in my mission to reach out to as many people as I can reach with fun content that is entertaining but also inspiring. Thank you so much for your sometimes very generous support. And as a thank you, I want to give you access to my weekly show, Father Roderick to the Max, that is only available to my patrons. And also, take a look at the Discord server. Many of you have joined the Discord server. Many of you patrons have joined the Discord server last week. And so it's fun to see such a vibrant community on that platform that allows you to reach me much more easily. We can hang out there, we can chat, and the community also hangs out amongst themselves. So it's a really great addition. I'm so happy that I've been able to set that up as well for my patrons.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Before I get to this week's news, I just want to briefly answer a question from Noah in the chat, who wants to know, is Discord only for patrons, or do you get a better rank on Discord? Actually, the Discord server is just for my patrons, and there's a reason for that. I'm a priest, and patron, or let's say Discord, is a very open system. So if people join you and you don't know them, as a priest, you sometimes get a lot of noise, a lot of I don't know, discussion that you don't want to have. So I want to really protect that community so that everybody feels safe to be there. So that is why there is an automatic link between the patronage and the Discord server. As soon as you become a patron, you get access to Discord, and there are different ranks of patrons, different levels of support, and that gives you a different title and a different color. That's all. All right, talking about the news. Let's start with what's happening in my own life, the news of this week. I've been working really hard stripping the floors of my rectory. I just recorded an audio tour of my rectory before I started recording this weekly show, and you can listen to it on the newest episode of The Walk that you can find over at fatherroderick.com, which is my main website. The reason is I'm going to get new floors, all new floors. There was very old carpet, and it was stained, and I think at least 40 years old. So finally found some time during these summer weeks to remove it. Actually, I didn't remove it myself. Hank, one of my friends, helped me with that. And I think this upcoming Monday, there's a crew coming over that is going to install a new wooden floor, or actually fake wood. But it's going to look much nicer than what I had. And I talk a lot about these changes on the episode of The Walk, so take a look at that. I'm also super excited that I finally have a fantastic green screen setup. So I've got new lights that I was able to purchase thanks to the patrons, called Elgato Keylight Airs. I've got 2 of them sitting right there next to my monitor, and that light enables me to stream with a green screen day and night. So it doesn't really matter what kind of type of weather it is. Normally, in the past, I had to wait for, at least for daylight, so I could light the green screen. And even then, the image would often be a little bit, low quality and grainy. With these lights, I can finally stream at any time of the day. I've also installed a teleprompter, which is an awesome little device. It's like a slanted mirror, and the camera films me through the mirror, but it also means that I can slide in my old iPhone with an app that projects a script onto the mirror. I'm not using it right now, of course, because there is no way that I could script an entire episode of my podcast. I used to do that in the earliest days of my podcasting. I would write down everything because I wasn't very fluent in English back then, and I was uncertain, and I didn't have the experience, I guess. So I would write out the entire show, and it sounds so stilted. If I go back to those early days of podcasting, and that was around 2005, I think, I can barely listen to myself. But sometimes for YouTube videos, you want something that is a bit more concise, more to the point, not too much banter. That is why I'm happy that I can now use a teleprompter to project a script that I've written myself. So I kind of write it. I try to make it. I try to write it in such a way that it sounds as if I am making it up on the spot. But in fact, it is actually very well prepared, and that hopefully will also improve the quality of my daily YouTube videos. In case you're not following me on YouTube, youtube.com/FatherRoderick. So the other thing that I'm doing this week is I'm designing a new kitchen. So since I now work full-time on the ground level of the rectory, I'm gonna move my kitchen upstairs. But that enables me to create a new one. I'm not going to create it, but I'm going to design a new kitchen. And I want to make one I want to make the kitchen that I've always dreamt about. And unfortunately, I've never had such a kitchen. So it's a lot of fun. I've been to IKEA the other day, looking at all the options. And I think I know what kind of configuration I want. Now I need to calculate the price. And I'm kind of holding my breath because it's not going to be cheap. But then again, a kitchen is one of the places where you are every single day, multiple times a day. And I love cooking, and having a good kitchen is going to add a lot of fun to that process of cooking. So I'll keep you up to speed on that as well in future episodes. And of course, I've got a kitchen segment on Father Roderick to the Max, which is the Patreon show. I'll stop plugging my Patreon account by now, but there will be a lot of cooking in my future. Let's talk about the things that are going on in the real world. Well, not that my life is not the real world, but I want to talk briefly about the unexpected sudden death of someone who is universally loved in the television world, Grant Imahara. He's most known for his role as a co-host of the Mythbusters show. For 10 years, he co-hosted that show. Very enthusiastic, vibrant personality. He was only 49 years old, and he suddenly died a couple of days ago as a result of a brain aneurysm, and it sent shockwaves through the world. Not only was he well known for his co-hosting of Mythbusters, but he was also a very talented mechanic, and so he worked for Lucasfilm and ILM. During the prequel saga, when the prequel saga was being produced, he was the one who updated the mechanics of the old R2-D2 droids. So the R2-D2 droids were fabricated, of course, for the original trilogy. And then when they started to film the prequels, they wanted to get rid of all the mechanics that were hampering the filming of the old trilogy. It was a well-known fact that the R2 units, because there were multiple ones, were always failing and breaking down, and causing so many delays. It was all because, well, back then in the 70s when they filmed the original Star Wars trilogy, they just didn't have the quality mechanics that they have now. So he worked hard on completely upgrading R2-D2 and even operated R2-D2 during some of the film shoots. So if you see R2-D2, it's also thanks to the work of Grant Imahara. So the entire Star Wars community was also mourning his sudden departure from this world. So he worked on several very well-known movies: The Lost World, Jurassic Park, the prequels, Galaxy Quest. He was also involved in that movie. Artificial Intelligence, a Steven Spielberg movie that was littered with a great CGI and also a lot of robots that were used, and they were actually built specifically for that movie and for the scenes. It was not just CGI. He also worked on Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, The Matrix Reloaded, and Matrix Revolutions. Van Helsing, which is a movie I still haven't seen yet. And then the most recent work that he did is still available on Netflix, and it was a series called The White Rabbit Project. It was meant to be a bit like Mythbusters, but it only was done for one season, and then Netflix canceled it because it just didn't get didn't meet the expectations, I guess, of Netflix of being kind of the new Mythbusters. There are a few things that struck me when I read about his death. First of all, he died of a brain aneurysm. That is the same affliction that almost killed my dad when I was still a 12-year-old boy. I still remember it vividly. We were on vacation on ski vacation, winter vacation in Switzerland. And my father had been suffering from heavy migraines. Now, that was nothing new. He's always had migraines during his life, most of them stress-related. In this case, it turned out to be something else. Turned out there was one of the arteries in his brain had weakened, and it broke. And so he got an aneurysm, was rushed to the hospital. Our entire vacation was over, of course, and then he was in the hospital for many, many weeks, recovering in the Netherlands. And the rest of his life, he has been under much more stricter surveillance because aneurysms can return. This is something that can happen multiple times in your life. So he's always lived a little bit with that, uncertainty. Is this going to happen again? The damage to his brain at first was pretty extensive. It hit also his language centers, which often happens with aneurysms. And it's only gradually that his brain started to remake connections. And so his ability to speak improved over time. But there were still moments where he had to search for words, and there were even much, much later, many years later, you could still sometimes see the effects of the aneurysm. It also changed his character in a certain way, his behavior. He had much more difficulty dealing with stress. And also, he was a very intelligent academic, my father. But when there was too much information, there was just overload. And that was definitely also part of the damage of the aneurysm. It's only much, much later that I realized that I could have lost my father to that aneurysm during that vacation. I could have been not an orphan because my mom is still there, but I could have lost my father because of that aneurysm. It was so dangerous, and it's almost a miracle that he survived. So that was the first thing that struck me when I heard about the death of Grant Imahara. Second thing was that it made me realize again how fragile we are. And so how quickly, this guy is almost my age. He's 49 years old. I'm 52. This could happen to me as well. Even though you may run marathons, but this is something that is, if you don't know that this is going on, the only thing that they saw that kind of was a prelude to the aneurysm that killed him were these migraines. And they didn't recognize it as something that was kind of announcing this aneurysm in his brain. So you always tend to think that you will live to die at a very old age, but nothing is given in this life. So it's important to make sure that you do the right thing right now. Don't postpone until next year what you really want to do or what you need to do this year. You never know how long you're going to live. The third thing that I wanted to briefly mention is that it was so touching to see the tribute to Grant Imahara. None of those tributes concerned the quality of his work or the amount of time that he would work late at night. Everybody said this was such a generous, nice, fun guy to hang out with. So the way people remember him is for 90% based on his behavior, on his kindness, on his joy, on his infectious enthusiasm, and not based on his work. And so that is another important lesson to keep in mind. What does it really matter that you work all these extra hours, that you forget about the things that truly matter in life and sacrifice it for just to make a little bit more money, or think of all the concerns and the things that you're worried about. What of that list of worries truly matters in the end? Not much. And so this past week, and I talk a little bit more about this on the walk, I sat down to do a bit of soul searching, and I wrote down everything that bothers me, everything that takes away my energy. And on the other side, I tried to make a list of all the things that give me energy, that make me happy, that make other people happy, that have to do with my real mission in life. And it was so good to make that list. And I've done this in the past, but it was so good to see the things that I'm actually, that are frustrating, that I complain about all the time. None of those things matter. I don't want to be remembered by those things, by those grievances, by those little conflicts. And so it was another wake-up call. Focus on the positive. Focus on your contribution to the world. Focus on what joy you can bring to the people around you, instead of letting yourself be consumed by all the worries. None of that ultimately matters. So, Grand Imahara, may he rest in peace. A little bit of news, much less important, of course, ultimately, was this huge Twitter hack. This happened, I think, in the evening, or at least I discovered it early in the morning because it was all over the news that more than 100 very well-known people had their Twitter accounts hacked by a Bitcoin gang. And so they were posting as if they were, I don't know, Barack Obama or Biden, or I don't think the president of the United States was hacked, but Elon Musk. And the thing is, you were promised something that was way too good to be true. Like, if you deposit $1,000 on this account, I will give you back double it. And apparently some people fell for it. This, again, everyone can be hacked. If you've seen Mr. Robot, this actually happened, was predicted in Mr. Robot. And so we should know by now that if something sounds too good to be true, it almost always is. So don't give away your money to people that you've never met in person. Actually, don't ever give away money like that without checking if it's really true. And be careful, because this is greed, I think, that made people react to this and give their money away to these Bitcoin gangsters. It's the same as these email scams. Just know that you always have to check your sources, and it's rare nowadays that we fall for these scams, but it still happens all the time. And even Twitter is not safe, and this will happen again in the future. And we all know that this is just a scam to extort money from people, but this is also happening on the level of politics and social media. There's no social network that is entirely safe. Everything can be hacked. Everything can be manipulated. So be conscious of that. Be aware of that. Be prudent. And always check. Even when it comes to news, check the sources. Is this really true? Is this photo a real photo, or has it been manipulated? These headlines, always read the article and check it, instead of just reacting to the headlines and then just getting all upset. There is a lot of money that is made nowadays that taps into this outrage culture, where we retweet and we comment on stuff even without really reading it or really listening it. There is, I think, a lot of value to this old Christian virtue of prudence, taking time. Don't let other people rile you up like that. Just take your time. Count to 100. Say a prayer for those that you hate, and then react. That will save the world a lot of pain. And with that, I think it is time to move over to the world of movies and TV shows. And I'm going to give you a review of a series that I've been checking out on Prime Video. And I was so happy to discover that it was back on Prime. It's not been available on streaming services here in the Netherlands for years. But now it's back, and I discovered it thanks to my friend John Domek, talking about the X-Files.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. Now I'm gonna give it to you.
So X-Files was on TV when I was still in seminary, and so I have not watched many episodes. Every once in a while, I'd be with my parents or during the summer holiday, and I would catch an episode or one or two. Never really followed the series, and so there was this... it ran for about 11 seasons, and they just recently they did another season of the X-Files. And it was all about these paranormal phenomena, UFOs, etc. Stuff that as a child I was fascinated with. And I so hope that one day I could see a UFO with my own eyes, and I would stare at the skies for days and hoping to see the, I just wanted to be part of the group of this small elite group of people that have actually seen a UFO for real. So when the X-Files became a hit, I was intrigued, and I wish I could have seen it when it aired originally. Now, I have since then turned into a skeptic. That may sound a bit weird for someone who is a priest and is supposed to believe in a lot of invisible things, but being a believer doesn't mean that you are suddenly prone to believing in anything or everything. We're also rational beings. God gave us a brain and gave us science. And so I'm actually, I enjoy listening to a lot of podcasts about, that debunk a lot of these things that we think may be there. So, yeah, could there be unidentified flying objects? Sure. It doesn't mean that they're from outer space. It doesn't mean that there are aliens involved. Unexplained, unidentified doesn't mean that there won't be a time that we will be able to explain what's going on. And that's true also for a lot of so-called paranormal things. Do I believe that there is more than what is visible? Of course. What about love? It is invisible. You can only see the effects. But do I believe that love exists? Yes, by all means. So, do I believe that God exists? Yes. Do I understand? No. But on when it comes to a lot of the beliefs that some people hold, I'm pretty skeptical, and it's very interesting to sometimes see and read about these phenomena and seeing how scientists are trying to come up with explanations, and because it also helps you to not be credulous and to use science to try to probe what you don't understand. Well, that is kind of the premise of the X-Files, where these two detectives, these two FBI detectives are trying to solve the secret behind stuff that sometimes is qualified as an X-file. It's kind of a label for everything that pertains to the world of the paranormal or the extraterrestrial. And then you've got Mulder, who firmly believes that UFOs are real, and then you've got Scully, who is more skeptical and always tries to find out if there is a rational explanation for what they have witnessed and experienced. That combination of the believer and the skeptic really, really works. The dynamic that's just a fantastic idea for a television series. What also I think makes this series such an amazing accomplishment is the quality. And that is where I was blown away by the version that you can find on, or at least in my country, you can find on Amazon Prime. It is a remastered version. So the first few seasons originally aired on TV in a time where widescreen TVs were very, very rare. Almost everyone had these big, bulky TVs that had 4:3 dimensions. And so even though film was already, like cinema, etc., theatrical releases were all filmed in the 16:9 or even 21:10, I think, proportions, what you saw on television was almost always cropped, or it was filmed in that aspect ratio. Think of Star Trek, The Next Generation, for instance. That is entirely filmed in 4:3. Whereas nowadays, that is something we don't use anymore. However, the X-Files, even though it was aired in a cropped version, the first seasons were actually filmed on real film using the 16:9 proportions. And this remaster has brought back the full extent of what was filmed. And they always filmed it knowing that it would be on TV in 4:3, but that maybe eventually they would show the entire 16:9 frame. And it is such an improvement. Not to mention that the quality, because this was made on film and they didn't use, video recorders, which was all the rage back then, but they really paid for film. It still holds up. It's so sharp. The quality is so good. The colors are so amazing. Not to mention the cinematography is so good. It blows me away, and I'm hooked. I've been watching 4 episodes now, and I know that I'm going to finish all 11 or 12 seasons. It's that good. And I'm enjoying it not just for the storytelling, which is really good, the pacing is good, but also I'm just looking at what they did with with such limited means. They didn't have a big budget, and yet the way it was filmed, the cinematography, they used so many tricks to make it look as basically a movie. And you can learn a lot as an aspiring cinematographer just by trying to figure out how they filmed the X-Files. Let me just play a little bit of the trailer here. This is the original trailer from 1998.
What do you do?
I'm an annoyance to my superiors, a joke to my peers. They call me Spooky. Spooky Mulder. I'm the key figure in an ongoing government charade. The plot to conceal the truth about the existence of extraterrestrials.
Well, I would say that about does it, Spooky.
It's mutated.
Into what?
I can't tell you what killed this man. I'm not sure anybody else could claim to either.
These men have been secretly negotiating a planned Armageddon.
And you have conclusive evidence of this? Yes.
I'm already way past the point of common sense here.
I can't quit now, Scully. I need you on this. It's a global conspiracy with key players at the highest levels of power. It reaches into the lives of every man, woman, and child on this planet.
You've seen more than you should.
Then you must take away what he holds most valuable. On June 19th.
The impossible scenario that we never planned for? Well, we better come up with a plan.
Take your greatest fear.
These people don't make mistakes.
Your most paranoid suspicion.
We have no context for what killed those men.
And your darkest nightmare. And multiply it by X.
So much for little green man.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop it here because it goes on. This is, by the way, I think was for the film, right? There was a movie that was made after the series was finished, or maybe in the final part of when they were still airing the last seasons, they did the theatrical release. I think that's actually what this trailer is for. I'm not sure. When did this come out? Now I'm starting to doubt myself. X-Files, Wikipedia. Let me see. I was right. This aired actually in 1993. That's when the first season started, and this movie is from 1998, when I think the popularity of the show was at its height. So anyway, it's unbelievable to see that a series that is so old holds up this well. Yeah, I love it. Anyway, the second series is on Netflix that I wanted to review, and it's based on an anime series called Warrior Nun. I'm not kidding you. It has now been turned into a Netflix exclusive series. It is very strange, and, well, since I'm a priest, of course, I need to talk about it. First, a little bit of the trailer.
belong to the Order of the Cruciform Sword, devout women who have dedicated their lives to fight in an ancient evil. Whoever bears a halo is a new champion, a warrior or not.
I'm sorry, can we maybe jump to the part where any of this has anything to do with me?
Hell will rise up, heaven will fall. How did our greatest weapon against evil end up in an unbeliever?
The halo is a gift. You're God's champion. It will enhance whatever natural abilities you already possess.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're entering a new era of enlightenment. Heaven does exist, because I discovered a gateway to it.
People have tried to make me into something I'm not. Pain is what made me a sister warrior.
This is where the fighting begins. So this is such a weird concept. So apparently there is this religious order made of nuns, and they are the guardians of a halo. It's not just a halo, it's an angel's halo. And it is actually a thing. It's an object. It's this luminescent circle that you can give to someone, and it enters your body and gives you superpowers, turns you basically in a superhero. Immortal as well. The halo apparently also gives you, life that can make you resurrect. And that happens to the protagonist, the girl who is the main character of the story. I think her name is Ava, probably a play on Ava. And Ava is, I think, an orphan child. She died, and she happened to be in the morgue of the sisters of that order. And so the sisters are attacked by satanic monsters, and then in order to protect the halo, they basically slap it on the back of this poor girl, who then all of a sudden awakes from the death and now is this, super nun. It's so weird. The series features priests and bishops and cardinals, and they all adhere to the well-known tropes of Hollywood productions in that they babble about in spiritual language, and none of it theologically makes sense. In the trailer, you heard them say that, of course, there's heaven and there's hell, and now we've discovered a gateway to heaven, and apparently it's this kind of portal that you can open, and so there is a lot of machinery involved. And I'm thinking, okay, the concept of heaven and hell is that it is not some kind of galaxy that you can transport to, but heaven and hell has to do with your soul. So whatever is immaterial, and where you will end up depends on your choices. So heaven and hell are not physical places as such, or at least that's not the most important aspect of it. It is all about, are you open for God's love or not? Heaven is where God is. Hell is where God is absent, not because he doesn't want to be there, but because we refuse to open ourselves to his love. So they kind of make heaven and hell into physical entities. So by definition, they're no longer metaphysical concepts in this series. So it turns everything into a gimmick. So the cruciform sword, this magical sword in the form of a cross. And I'm thinking, okay, the cross is a symbol of death, but it also signifies the life-giving sacrifice that Christ gave by giving his life to save us all. They're just reducing the crucifix in this series to something cool, something kind of sounds Christian, and then we'll just make the sword, and so we can do a lot of sword fighting. And so, anyway, there's a lot of language in the series, a lot of violence, a lot of horror, and a lot of fighting. And you may think that I don't like it at all because of all these aforementioned reasons. Well, actually, I do enjoy it quite a bit. It is a lot of fun to watch. It is extremely cheesy. It is filmed mainly with Portuguese and Spanish actors. And I have the distinct impression that the series is dubbed. So a lot of the actors sound a little bit strange. A lot of the acting feels a bit weird, but I'm thinking maybe it is because they used non-American actors and they dubbed it later, and that gives you that disconnect. I'm not sure. Maybe they were trying to speak English, but like the main actress, her English is so good, and yet I know that she's not a Native American, or her native language is not American. So I don't know what's going on there. I tried to Google it, couldn't figure it out. The other thing that makes me want to watch this is the location. This is all filmed in, I think it's Andalusia. It's filmed in Spain, in beautiful villages, amazing churches. It's almost nothing is set. They really went to all these different places in Spain, and that grounds what you see, and it's just amazing. I love Spain, and I'm just watching this because it's so beautiful. The backdrops, the scenery is amazing, and the fact that they filmed it on real locations also, it kind of takes away a little bit of the cheesiness of the whole thing. If this were really filmed in Hollywood, it would have been merely kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Christian symbolism. But this really, I think, lifts it to another level. So, do I recommend this for your theological education? No, absolutely not. Is it fun to watch? Yes. Is this something you would watch with your kids? No. Is this something you may enjoy if you just want to see something a bit stupid and still fun, and you want to kind of be entertained by all the Christian symbolism that they got wrong? Oh, yeah. I can totally see myself doing a YouTube series where I go over this, warrior nun and try to explain. So this is what you see. This is what it really means. I think that could be a fun series. Maybe sometime in the future. But anyway, so Warrior Nun is right now, I think season 1 is on Netflix, and they are working on season 2. It may already be out. I'm not sure. But that's what I wanted to share with you. Let's go visit the Peculiar Bunch and talk a little bit about real heaven and hell.
Catholics rock!
Here at the Peculiar Bunch, we're always happy to tell you everything you always wanted to know about Catholics, but you're afraid to ask.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
So this is one of the most frequently asked questions. What about heaven and hell? And what about this purgatory thing?
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
So, as you know, and I just mentioned it, there are a lot of shows that are based on Christian symbolism and all the tropes that we know. But that also has a downside, and it sometimes confuses us about these concepts. Because when we think of heaven, when we think of hell, we think of the images. We think of the pearly gates in the clouds. We think of, St. Peter with this book, browsing through all our, Facebook feeds, trying to find if we are worthy to enter heaven. And when we think of hell, we think of flames. We think of this abyss. We think of monsters and all kind of Mordor or whatever. And the thing is, for purgatory, we don't really have imagery. And so a lot of Christians are confused, and a lot of non-Christians are also confused about this whole idea of, so what is this purgatory thing? I read a couple of questions of some of my patrons on the Discord channel for faith-related questions, and Samuel at one point was asking, what about this whole purgatory thing? And is this the same as limbo? And what does the Catholic Church think about, for instance, children that die before having been able to be baptized? Are they going to hell? Are they going straight to heaven? Are they going to limbo? And so I've answered this question a couple of times in the past, years ago, but it's always good, since I get new viewers and new listeners, to just do a bit of a refresher. And I will try to keep it short, because I tend to go very long on these answers. But I tried to explain earlier on in this show that heaven and hell are not physical places. They are states of your soul in a certain way, and they depend on your free will, on your decisions, the decisions that you make. In this life, we are preparing for eternal life. And the choices that we make can either open us up for love, can help us, can strengthen the love in us, and thereby make us more open to God's love, the source of all that love. Or our actions, our sins, can close us for love, can make us egotistical, can hurt other people, and thereby also always hurting ourselves and our prospects for eternal life. The more you hate, the less you can accept God's grace. And so, what is heaven? Heaven is where the saints are. And not just the saints that we know, the ones that are depicted with a halo, which is basically a visual form of trying to indicate that it's the light of God that shines through us. That is why the saints and also the Virgin Mary and Jesus himself are surrounded by halos. It looks like a sun. That's basically, it's a symbol for God's radiation, the radiation of his love, that in everyone who's holy shines through that person. It's the love that permeates everything that these people do. It means that everyone who is in heaven is a saint, even if you don't have a statue with a halo. The other option is hell. What is hell? It is the state of everyone who completely, 100% refuses God. There are, in the Catholic theology and tradition, not just human beings with a soul, but there are also angels. And angels are spiritual beings. And since they have no body, no physical body, they are not living within time. But angels do have a free will. But once they make a choice, it is immediate and it is eternal. And so what is the devil? The devil is a spiritual being. It is an angel who has been presented just like any other spiritual being, and just like us, humans, with a choice. Do you embrace God's love or do you refuse it? And Satan is an angel that has refused God's love. For what reasons? Well, biblical stories tell us about egotism, the desire for power, rivalry with God, jealousy, all that. But of course, these are just stories to try to help us understand that heaven and hell are actually the result of our choices, and thereby giving. These stories always have a moral aspect, because the stories are there to help us to make the right choices. If you want to go to heaven, act out of love. Choose love, and you will go to heaven. Act out of hatred and egotism, and you will be on the path towards hell. Refuse. God cannot be where you don't allow him to be. That is the consequence of our ability to choose. Our free will is a gift of God that, for God, had a huge risk. It means that we can refuse his love. It is unthinkable, and yet we do it all the time when we sin. We as human beings are in time, so we are constantly faced with this choice. And in little and big things, we have to choose how we act. And we have to, we can choose between generous self-sacrifice or egotistical greediness. And it is this succession of actions that will ultimately set us on the path towards heaven and the path towards hell. Is it as black and white as this in real life? No. Sometimes we love a lot, but we also make mistakes. We also hurt a bit. Sometimes we hurt others a lot, but we still do small acts of love. even great criminals can still do loving things. Think of the mafia criminals that still love their family and their children. I mean, that can be genuine love. It's just that their moral compass is not working the way it should be. So the reason that we imagine the pearly gates as being this gate where St. Peter is checking what we did, it's an image to help us be aware of the fact that our ultimate life, eternal life, is going to be determined by our choices in this life. So what is purgatory? Purgatory is this state where we die and our heart is already open for God, but it's at the same time heavily scarred by all our sins, by all our egotism. And before we can fully embrace God's love, it needs healing. And so whoever is in purgatory is already on their way to heaven, but God grants us this time. Well, it's not really time, but this state of healing where bit by bit we can open ourselves up to God. So purgatory is actually a positive state to be in because you know that you're going to be saved. It may take some time. Again, this is all our way of speaking about things that we cannot really formulate in our language with our knowledge and our very limited forms of expression. But it is a place of hope that one day we will be all, embracing God's love for 100%. And we have the saints in the Catholic Church as a proof of concept. It is possible to go straight to heaven. Look at the saints. They show you how. Follow their example, ask for their help, and you too can be on your way to heaven. So what is limbo? What happens to children that die without having received baptism? So for the Catholic Church and for Christian faith in general, baptism is necessary to embrace God's love. Or actually, baptism is the way in which you allow God to embrace you with his love. And Jesus has ordered his apostles to go into the world and to baptize people. So it's stemming straight from Jesus. Our misunderstanding when it comes to limbo may be that even though this is the way, this is the way that Jesus preaches, that he wants us to be part of that family of God, it is not the only way. God is not a prisoner of his sacraments. So what does that mean for children that die without having been baptized? Well, in the Catholic Church, we have a concept that is called the baptism of desire. If your parents desire you as a child, even you may not have even been born. You think of miscarriages, people that have lost their child before it was even born. If they desire their children to be enveloped by love, even if they don't even know the source of that love by name, that desire alone is the road to salvation. So that's baptism is actually a much broader concept than just the baptism that we know from the ritual, from the sacrament in church. So in medieval theology, they struggled with that concept. It was like, well, what is, if you can go to heaven without being baptized, well, that kind of makes baptism redundant, right? So why would we go to the ends of the world and put so much effort in baptizing people if you can go to heaven without it? On the other hand, it went a little bit too far to say that people would go to hell if they weren't baptized. How can a child go to hell? How can a child choose to refuse God? Of course not. And so they were like, well, there has to be something in between. And it's not purgatory. It's not this healing state. So we'll just call it limbo and just forget about it. And then this actually resulted in practices that are now judged as being completely inappropriate. But children that were not baptized, that, for instance, would die during or right after childbirth, they could not be buried in a Christian burial place. They couldn't get a Christian funeral because that was for people that were baptized. And so they would bury these children right outside the burial place. And the hurt the trauma that it has caused parents. And this is actually has been quite a recent practice. It was abolished. My parents still have seen burials like that. Fortunately, thankfully, the Catholic Church has corrected that practice. It has never been dogma, by the way. It's never been, limbo has never been dogma, and this practice has never been an official practice of the Church. It's more kind of maybe an inability to think large theologically. So anyway, there's no way the Catholic Church would preach anything like that nowadays. But when you think about heaven and hell and purgatory, think of love. It has to do with love. If you aim for love, if you love one another, that is where you will find God. Ubi caritas, ibi Deus est, it says in Latin. Where there is love, God is there. And where is God, that's where heaven starts. So heaven is actually not just a reality after this life. Heaven is already establishing itself in this life. The more you love, the more you're already, with your toes in heaven. That's all I'm going to say about it. Let's go to the world of books.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
At the beginning of this year, I pledged a solemn pledge. I vowed to read one book every week. And like many other things that you decide at the beginning of the year, I fell off the bandwagon a couple of weeks ago. And I was shocked and horrified to discover on Goodreads that I had only read 16 books this year, and we're in week 29, which means that I am 13 books behind. Well, it's never too late to turn around. And so what I'm going to do, it's a bit of a hack. I'm going to read a number of smaller books. So yesterday evening, I started to read all these small books that Tolkien has written. And there are a ton of them. The Adventures of Tom Bombadil and, many of these smaller stories. They still count as books. And I always wanted to read them and kind of discarded them because they were so, too small, not epic enough. And then I started to read all these adventure books that are like 600 plus pages and very, very courageous, but maybe not the smartest thing to do because it's just too much. And so I'm just going to give you a short overview of the books that are currently on my list, and hopefully it will take me a couple of weeks, maybe even months, but I will read one book every single week, even though I have to cram in 2 or 3 books per week from now on. So here's on my reading list what I tagged as to read, and maybe these can be some ideas for your own reading list. Let me go to the end of my list here. Scrolling. So, Farmer Giles of Ham was actually written by Tolkien. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Never heard of it. Tolkien's Ordinary Virtues. This is a book about Tolkien. What else did I have? So, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. Actually, I do believe that I've read that many, many years ago. What else was I reading just the other day? There was a book about a dog. I can't find it anymore. Is it on top of my list right now? Probably. Oh, yeah, there is it. Roverandom. It's a weird book. Anyway, but there's a wizard involved. And then I also have another list of books by CS Lewis, a good friend of Tolkien. Also, some of them are quite easy to read, not too big, 100 pages a book. And I'm also going to work my way through those books of C.S. Lewis. Even a couple of his books from the Narnia saga are actually quite small and easy read. So those are going to be on top of my reading list for the next couple of weeks. And of course, as soon as I've finished a book, I'll review it here on the show. Let's pay a quick visit because time is running out. I need to wrap things up. But I want to talk a little bit about science fiction, more specifically about a new Star Wars series that was announced the other day. I've already recorded 2 YouTube videos about it, but since not everyone that is listening also follows me on YouTube, still want to briefly mention it here on the show. Talking about The Bad Batch, a new series on Disney Plus, upcoming.
I see aliens. Little aliens from outer space.
And how are things in outer Plutonia?
How many times have I told you not to wear your space boots in the house?
Go to shape I'm in, you can donate my body to science fiction.
Get your suit on! We need you!
So, for a number of reasons, Disney has decided to start working on the production of a new animated series called The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch refers to 3 episodes of the final season of the Clone Wars, in which we saw, I think, 4 or 5 clone warriors, clone soldiers that actually had some genetic defects. So clones are supposed to be exactly identical, right? And the fun thing that Disney and Lucasfilm did with the Clone Wars was that they gave all these clones, even though they have similar genes, or actually are identical to each other, they still have a different life story, right? So they do develop different characters, different stories. And so they humanized the Clone Wars seasons, humanized the clones and gave a depth to what we see in the main movies that the main movies didn't give us. So we don't really care if we see big ships being destroyed and lots of clones dying in all these battles with the Jedi. But now that you know their backstory, you do get more empathy for these clones. So the Bad Batch were a number of kind of failed clones, and they have very distinct superpowers in a certain way. So one is very technical, the other one is super strong, etc., etc. One looks like Rambo and is very inventive. And then Echo, one of the clone troopers that was at one point abducted by the Separatists and returns in the final season of the Clone Wars, joins that group of renegade clone warriors. The Bad Batch will continue their stories after Order 66. Order 66 is the order that the Emperor kind of programmed or had programmed or had asked the Camino? Was it Camino? Anyway, the clones were programmed with a chip, and if Order 66 was issued, the clone soldiers would start killing the Jedi, even though they were allies of the Jedi before that. And so after Order 66, most of the Clone Wars were over, and the Jedi were being persecuted. The Bad Batch probably escaped this Order 66, maybe because they were so divergent. And this season will follow their adventures. And my theory is that Disney greenlit this series because of the postponement of a number of other big projects. A main project was The High Republic, which was a big commercial launch of stories that took place 200 years before The Phantom Menace. And then also the Obi-Wan television series was postponed. So maybe there is more room in their schedule. Hence the order of this Bad Batch animated series, just to fill in the gaps, keep people busy and keep the fans happy. There are some risks to this decision as well. If you want to find out which ones, check out my YouTube video on youtube.com/Father Roderick.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Let's plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
At the end of this show, I want to talk briefly about something that is just around the corner for most of us, but for some of you, it may already be available. I'm talking about Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels. This is a feature of Instagram that Facebook is preparing to roll out in more than 50 countries in the weeks to come, or maybe even days to come. And it is a direct rival of the kind of controversial TikTok app that has stormed the world about a year ago from a Chinese company and is now under fire from a lot of privacy watchdogs, and also is being investigated by the American government. And there is talk about a ban of TikTok because of security issues. I expanded upon that, I think, last week in my show. So if TikTok is being banned from a number of these big countries, of course, the creators are still there, and they want a platform. This is very similar to what Facebook tried to do when Snapchat was starting to feel the pressure from, there were a lot of issues with Snapchat, privacy issues. In Europe, there was quite a bit of criticism on the way Snapchat was gathering information and metadata. And so Facebook was like, well, we can do that. And they built a copy of Snapchat in Instagram. And they try to do that with many other, whenever there's something popular that they can copy, they will do it. And so they've been working to create basically a TikTok copy. It's called Instagram Reels, and it works exactly the same. You scroll up, and the algorithm will start to gather information on what you like and will present you with new content. This is all very short form content, 15 seconds, a little bit of music in the background. It's really made for teenagers, probably, or it's targeting teenagers just like TikTok is doing at the moment, and Snapchat did a while ago. And of course, the big question is, are people going to use it? Well, right now, it is limited to countries like Brazil, India. I think it launched in the UK recently, but some of you UK listeners may be able to give us some more information on that. And as I said, Facebook is ready to roll it out to the rest of the world now that TikTok is in jeopardy. And there is one thing that may cause this to fail. And it is the fact that it is built as a function, as a feature of Instagram. Now, I know that Instagram has millions and millions of users all over the world, but they're using it for Instagram. They tried with stories to give it a bit of a Snapchat functionality. Actually, they copied almost everything that people use Snapchat for. They copied it to stories. They tried to plug stories also on Facebook profiles, and that didn't really work. Now they're adding Reels, the TikTok clone, to the Instagram interface in the same way that they did with stories. And I wonder if that's going to work. What I like about TikTok, and there's a lot to like, in addition to all my reservations that I have, is that it is just as you launch it and you start watching. It's that easy. In Instagram, you really have to look for it. It's not, the user interface of Instagram is a mess. It always has been a mess. And so it is not that easy to access. And I think just having that threshold at the beginning of the experience may actually cause this to fail. The same happened to that, I don't even remember the name, the video that they added, the short form vertical videos, was it IGTV or something like that? I mean, it's almost impossible to find. When you go to Instagram, usually you start watching a video, and then it says after a while you want to continue watching this, go to, what is it, IGTV? I think it's IGTV, right? IGTV. When was the last time I launched this app on my phone? I think it's like half a year ago. And I don't think it ever became a hit. So that is always the kind of, Facebook is very good at copying stuff, but it doesn't do what Apple does. Apple also looks around and looks at what are people using, and copies it, but also improves on it and makes the best version of it. Facebook is usually stopping at cloning, and then they kind of hide it somewhere in one of their existing apps. And I don't know why. Facebook has all the abilities to make it much bigger than TikTok. They have the platform. They've got the users. But they, for some reason, always want to kind of put it as a feature in some other app that people use. I don't know about Reels. I will definitely try it out, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a hit. What could also happen is another scenario, and that is that TikTok becomes more transparent, because if they are banned from the United States, that's also going to be a massive economic problem for them. So maybe they'll come around and they'll start improving their privacy. The privacy in general of that app. That's what I hope. I hope that, because TikTok is very promising, and I don't want Facebook to have all my data as well. I like the diversity, and, the world is not going to be necessarily a better place when Facebook has all the cool apps. That's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for listening or watching. If you want to catch me live, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel over at youtube.com/Father Roderick. If you are a patron, then you can get ready for another episode of Father Roderick to the Max, which is my weekly show exclusive for those of you that support me. And we'll talk about barbecuing and grilling and much more. So check out patreon.com/Father Roderick. Thanks. God bless. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. That was long. Okay, so that was my podcast. Oh, it's dark out. Oh, it's not dark outside, but there's definitely less light outside. But I don't notice it because I've got these cool key lights illuminating the scene here. Hey, thank you so much for all the chatter in the comments section, both on the YouTube page, but also on Facebook. I am now going to go there. Hold on, I need to do one thing. I have to feed my iPad because it's at 2%. So it means out of juice very soon. Actually, this cable is a bit too short. Let me first address the Facebook people. Actually, there's not much there. Maybe it's because I had my screen off and it doesn't log the comments. I do see all the chatter on YouTube, so let me just go from recent to early comments. Do you have Animal Crossing Horizons? Kinder wants to know. Yes, and I love it. And I built a really nice island. I posted some Let's Play videos on my main YouTube page. So go to youtube.com/Father Roderick. Look for the Let's Play category, and you'll be able to see some of my island. It reminds me I need to do another Let's Play because I've been building new stuff on my island. So Lucifer, if I like Lucifer, I've never seen that series actually. Let's see. There's some talk about the limbo. I hope I explained that well. Non-baptized children do not end up in limbo. Maybe I should have said that more clearly. We believe that God loves, cannot but love and embrace children. So, yeah, Margot says a relative of mine was estranged from the church for decades because of the spiritual trauma she endured after she lost a child to sudden infant death before he was baptized. Yeah, that's terrible. That's really, really terrible. That shows you how important it is to have good theology and to have a pastoral heart. People want to know how they can join the patrons. Samuel is the person to go to. If you make bad choices, not out of hate, but out of fear, could God forgive you for that? God can forgive you anything. If you want to be forgiven, just say the word and he will forgive you. Purgatory is sort of like the DMV. I'm not sure what DMV is. Will you review the new Unsolved Mysteries in the future for us? That's a good idea. I haven't seen it yet. Samuel, thank you so much for the super chat. Mary is watching from Houston. Jaja says, X-Files is retro nostalgia these days. Yes, but for me, it's all brand new. Striking Talent says, as someone who works in healthcare, understanding the science behind how the human body works only makes me believe more in God and a creator. Very good point. Same is true for astronomers often. Have you watched Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix? No, I haven't watched it yet. I don't have time. Who is excited for Priest Simulator? Why would you go for a Priest Simulator if you can have the real thing on YouTube, right? Artigan says, I'm a Muslim, but watching you ever since your Star Wars reaction has made you my favorite pastor in the world. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much. Kitchen design will be fun. I hope so, yes. We've been loving the Italian recipes that you've been sharing. Yes, I shared quite a few of my recipes on Father Roderick to the max. I'm getting hungry, by the way. All right, I think I've already answered the rest of your questions. Yvonne, also, thank you so much for your super chat. Ivan is posting from Orlando, Florida. I hope you're safe. I heard that the virus is pretty rampant there. Mike Hayes is also there. Have a good weekend, you too. Oh, DMV is the American Department for Motor Vehicles, infamous for long lines and waiting times. Is that list available on Goodreads? I do have you. If you follow me on Goodreads, it's just Father Roderick, you will be able to see the books that I'm currently reading. I don't think I've put future books on there. I think I'm reading like I started reading 30 books. Oh boy. And Creepercraft Gaming is watching from Derby in the UK. Very good. So, do you already have Instagram Reels in the UK? I couldn't figure it out. So it's 4:15. I'm going to take a short coffee break because I'm in dire need of caffeine, and then I'll probably post a link for my patrons to the live show for them. Do you have a Nintendo Switch? Kinder Jajo wants to know. Yes, I have a Nintendo Switch, and I love it. And I only play one game, even though I have multiple ones. I love Animal Crossing New Horizons. I play that all the time. Sometimes I do a Let's Play. So if you want to watch those, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. But I also have Xenoblade Chronicles and The Witcher 3. Both of which I want to also stream if I get to it. If we make a GoFundMe for Tridio with a $3,000 goal, will you agree to grow a mustache? Never, ever. You don't. Honestly, you will pay me $3,000 not to see me with a mustache. I remember one day I had a 40-degree Celsius fever. And so for about a week, I was in bed, and I could not even go to the toilet anymore. It was horrible. And so I had a week-old mustache, and I looked like some kind of failed kung fu master. It just... bodily hair doesn't work on my face. It is really not... it's not a good result. So, no, believe me. You don't want to see me with a mustache. There are other ways you can do with $3,000. All right, with that, I'm going to wrap things up. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, if you want to see me live next week, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the podcast, or like the video. Just going to briefly take a look on my Facebook page, see if I can see the Facebook comments there. For some reason, where's my page? That is so weird. Why can't I? I want my Facebook viewers to know that I still acknowledge them, right? Recent posts. Oh, here we go. Oh, we've got 12 comments. Okay, so it's actually very quiet on Facebook. It's basically people saying good day to you. Gerda says the audio is not loud enough. Is that true? I'm not sure if I was the culprit. I will check it later on, but I think it was good. Samuel has a mustache, and a pretty serious one for that matter, so he does not agree with me. Call my mom. She'll confirm what I said. Greetings from Poland. Well, dobry wieczór. And thank you so much, or dzień dobry. Thank you so much for joining me. And talk to you guys soon. Take care. God bless.